I just give so much credit to our directors, Carrie Solomon and Chuck Conselman, who carried the heart for prayer from before we even got onto set. I started praying and leading the group of prayer warriors about 6 months prior to us even starting the project on the set and filming.
So how did you first get involved in the project directly?
Well, I'm a screenwriter,
Okay.
and Carrie and Chuck were speaking at a writers' conference one day, and as they were speaking, God gave me a screenplay to write. And prior to that time, I had not been a screenwriter, and I'd never written fiction, let alone read a script. But I knew that God was in it, and Carrie and Chuck loved the idea, and a year from that date, the screenplay was finished, and they put it into development.
And so that became...
It's called Love in the Face of ISIS, but it's not unplanned. And so they worked on my screenplay.
Okay.
And then when 10 days before Donald Trump was elected as president of the United States, they heard from the Lord to say, put aside the projects that they're working on. Unplanned would go first. So I got a phone call, and I heard that mine was shelved temporarily until the Lord said go, and that if we would be willing to just come and serve the team, they would like us, my husband and myself, to be their prayer team and on-set ministers.
So how'd that make you feel, get your screenplay set aside for the unplanned movie?
Well, I am grateful that they hear from the Lord, because I don't want to rush the timing, and it has to be in His timing. And as we can see with Unplanned, we could not have foreseen the events that were going to take place in our nation. You can't time that if you want to. So we know that the hand of God is on Unplanned, and I know that the way that He gave me the script, Love in the Face of ISIS, is a miracle, and He has a purpose for it, and it's going to be in His timing, not ours.
I was having this discussion. I'm sure you know Sean Carney.
Yes.
He and I did an interview, and a lot of it was about the movie.
Uh-huh.
And it just dawned on me here the significance of the timing. Obviously, It's playing off the name of Abby's book,
right,
and Planned Parenthood.
Right.
But there's another element here with respect to the timing of the release of this film. Mm-hmm. Like in my almost 30 years here in Ministry of Faith Radio, I've never seen the intensity of the abortion debate rise to the level that we are seeing in these days. And here we have a film that God has raised up for such a time as this, when we are seeing states embrace infanticide, when you have states that are like New York that are liberalizing their abortion laws. You have other states that are banning abortion at earlier stages of pregnancy, and the issue has been front and center now in America for quite a few months, and into this entire national debate. You got the movie. You got to say the hand of God is in that.
Right, and the hand of God isn't just in the movie in terms of bringing the issue of life to the forefront, but it's also to bring healing. Because that's just the one thing that we've noticed, is that so many stories are coming to the surface as Unplanned gets more attraction. Even on set, we had people that walked onto set. We had cast members, we had crew that learned about their abortion history, people that were abortion survivors and didn't know it, women that had abortions, and all of a sudden they're being healed from this. So this is a movie that has power to break off the shame and release those stories so that the healing of God can take place.
Well, you have written this healing devotional. It is called Planned from the Start. So tell me about what you wanted to communicate through this book.
Well, there are 5 major areas of emotional pain that women and men face following abortion: grief, guilt, shame, regret, and depression. And so this book is just an antidote to those feelings and to those emotions, but bringing in the healing of God to release joy, forgiveness, grace, and comfort and hope into those areas. And so there are 5 devotionals, there are 5 testimonies that accompany each of these areas of emotional pain, of people who've walked through abortion and found healing by the grace of God. So there's power in testimony, and if God could do it for them, they can do it for you.
So how do you see that the healing process occurs? You bring up these 5 areas. How have you seen some effective ways that people can actually appropriate that healing that God has provided?
Well, I think it all starts with the area of grief, because as one of my friends said that I interviewed, you cannot grieve if you don't acknowledge that a life was lost. And so there's acknowledgement that it wasn't just a clump of cells or a lump of tissue, but there was actually a human baby that was killed in the act of abortion. And there's an appropriate need to grieve. The body holds on to grief. It needs to have an outlet for grief. Even if it's denied or suppressed or ignored, the body holds on to that, and grief is the area that we want to touch first, to have the mourning turn to joy.